Live from an attic somewhere in the north, this is The Late Show with Tom Starkey.
Season's greetings, everyone out there. Tonight we're going to be rounding up my look at Microsoft and some of the features that may be a bit hidden that you may not know about. I'm also going to talk a little bit about digital organization. This is the kind of fascinating subjects that really kind of get me going on a Sunday evening, but it's a problem that I realised that many students are having.
Live from an attic somewhere in the north, this is The Late Show with Tom Starkey. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
I can never get me talk to fit into that bit on the introduction. You know, I'm not there yet. Sometimes I have too much to say, and then there's dead silence for a little while, and sometimes I don't get to say what I need to say, and that's what happened tonight. So second part of the show tonight is going to be about digital organization, looking at a couple of tools. It links in with the other Microsoft stuff that I'll be talking about as well. Just because I am seeing lots and lots of students where I work in my HE institution who are desperately struggling with digital organization and just the amount of digital learning material that they have to sift through. So I thought, why not put it on the show? Because that's the kind of planning that I like, the no plan, as it were. So I promised you all last week that I would look at some of the other OG programs of Microsoft and Windows. So we're going to start with Excel and get that out of the way. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody who really knows what they're doing with Excel. It's like watching a wizard. It's like watching Gandalf, talk to trees and bring down giant eagles. I can sit there with my mouth agog watching somebody on a PC just kind of like play with Excel and do these things that no human should be able to do. Excel's never been my forte. I've never had an administration role where I've had to use it. I've had to use it for things like end of year figures, reports. I had to use I mean, it's something that I've tried to kind of steer clear of because it's never been my favorite program. Too many boxes. I like to think outside the box personally, and Excel is just like all boxes, So I don't really have much of an insight into Excel, but I did ask somebody at my work, one of the aforementioned wizards of Excel. That does actually sound like a fantasy novel, doesn't it? That'd be brilliant. The Wizards of Excel. I'd read that. That'd be awesome. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the tips that they gave me to give to you wonderful listeners out there. If you're listening live, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on this cold and frosty evening. If you want to join the conversation, I can't take callers tonight, I'm afraid, but please, you can use Twitter at TT Radio 2022 and give some comments. You can also add a comment to the Podbean Live chat as well. Before this show, I was listening to one of my co-presenters, Brent's show on kind of the run up to Christmas. If you get a chance, give it a listen, because it's really, really good stuff. And it kind of triggered memories of my own school days where, the last week of Christmas and the halls of my school were full of the rumblings of the TV trolley. Now, you young'uns out there might not know this, right? You young'uns. Before the advent of electricity, and whilst dinosaurs roamed the earth, people of my age, my advanced age, when the last week of Christmas rolled on, we got to have a look at some Christmas entertainment, maybe a Christmas movie. And it was always on a TV trolley. They had to wheel this monolithic, like CRT trolley that had a television on it that you had to get up to change the channel. And there was always one kid in the class who knew how to use the TV and video recorder, because the teachers never did, and bless them at that time. Why would you want to learn how to do something like that? And it just, and Brent's show, just talking about some of the things that go on around Christmas, it kind of just triggered nostalgic memories of the TV trolley being wheeled in by a whole team of people because the telly was so heavy, and then whacking on a Christmas film. I ain't got no problem with. I know you got to. You should be teaching up until Christmas. You know what I mean? When I was a teacher, I was whacking Christmas movies on the middle of autumn. I was knackered. You know what I mean? But it was just like the rumbling of the trolley, and you knew you were going to have a good lesson, because you could just kind of you could hear it coming a mile off as well. It was like something out of Jurassic Park. You could hear it, and you thought, TV trolley, this is going to be awesome. Bugger that working for the lesson. We're going to be watching something. I'm trying to think of some of the movies that they showed when I was at school. For some reason, the school that I went to, it was a tad on the rough side. I remember one Christmas where they wheeled in. Well, by that time, no, it was still a TV trolley when I was in secondary school. But they put on a John Woo movie for Christmas, and I was thinking, and at that point in time, back in the day, nobody batted an eyelid. What was it? It was with John Travolta and Christian Slater. Broken Arrow. That's right. Broken Arrow was our Christmas movie one year. Crofton High School. God bless the place. It doesn't exist in its form. It was knocked down a number of years ago. But that. If you wanted good Christmas entertainment, what you did is you went to a geography class at Crofton, and then you sat down and you watched John Woo movies. It's just so weird, absolutely weird. I don't know what people would make of that today. Any good movie, by the way, doesn't get the recognition it deserves. But anyway, if have a listen to Brent's show. Really, really, really good. I had a listen. What I try to do is I listen to other people's shows, just to you got to check on the competition. You know what I mean? You can't be letting these young'uns kind of just try and rule the roost. You've got to check on the competition. But I was pleasantly surprised, and it triggered some very nice Christmas memories about my own school days. Because, I talk about my school days a little bit, and I've written about my school days a little bit, but my own secondary school experience was kind of like long periods of boredom, punctuated by like huge ultraviolence. But, they rolled in a TV every once in a while. We got to watch John Travolta jumping through the air in slow motion with a pistol in each hand. The spirit of Christmas. Yes, indeed. So, have a listen to Brent's show. It's a really good one. Today, I'm going to be talking about some of the... I'm stalling, to be honest, guys. I'm stalling because Excel's coming up. And I know I said I'd cover it last week, but I've done that group work thing and let somebody else do all the work for me, because Excel's not my forte or my forte. It's never been a program that I've enjoyed using. It relies on knowledge and a good grasp of things like order and a lack of chaos, and that's never really been my bag, to be honest. Never really been my bag. But I was talking to somebody in my office who is an aforementioned Excel wizard. Fantastic. Watching this person work a spreadsheet, it's a thing of beauty, absolute thing of beauty. And I'm just so impressed. It's one of those ones where you just think to yourself, I've got no idea how they've done this. Brent just say, young one's been a while since I've been called. Yeah, Brent, everybody's young compared to me. This is I'm wizened. Brent's just come up on the chat. Yeah, I'm an old wizard man. I'm so old. It's cold upstairs in the attic. I've got 2 dressing gowns on. It's so cold in this house that I've got a dressing gown over my dressing gown. I'm double dressing gowned. Yeah, it's I'm got 2 dressing gowns on. I've got what is perhaps the largest cup of coffee ever seen by man in my hand, just to keep me going, because it is way past my bedtime already. But anyway, I digress. So I talked to a wonderful colleague of mine who is adept at using Excel. They work the admin in my department, and watching them like mess around with the data. It's like watching somebody kind of conduct an orchestra. It's a thing of beauty. It's really impressive to watch. And I said, listen, I've got this show and I've got to sound like I know what I'm talking about. If you were to give me one tip about using Excel, something that not many people really consider, what would it be? And straight off the bat, absolutely no pause from this person whatsoever. Keyboard commands. She said, keyboard commands. Keyboard commands are the secret to Excel. And I was like, oh my goodness me, this is gold. This is absolute gold. Basically, and to be honest, this goes across the whole suite when it comes to things like our humble Word documents, PowerPoint, Excel. And it's something that's backed up by many of the students who I work with, who primarily use keyboard command for screen navigation due to certain mobility issues. In fact, I was berated in a session. One of my job roles is that I can offer remote support for students in their own studies as a personal assistant. And I was assisting a student of mine who was doing incredibly complicated things to do with engineering, and she was becoming more and more frustrated by the time it was taking me to do very simple things. And I was like, I can't do this any faster. Help. What do you mean? She says, just press this and that on the keyboard. And I was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? Keyboard commands are kind of they're the underlying secret to many keyboard command shortcuts. These things aren't necessarily used, but oh my goodness me, they are incredible time savers and effort savers. Even the humble Word document. How often do you, when you're trying to make the formatting a little bit sexy, oh yeah, let's have a little bold there and a little underline. How many people out there just highlight the words and then you click on the up the top there, formatting, and then you have to go down and use your mouse and click on the underline. Oh yeah, that's good. And then click on, bold. And if you're feeling a bit flighty, you italicize it as well. But dependent on what you can get away with. Sometimes things are a little bit too shocking. But you can do all this with keyboard commands, and it is so much quicker. And it always surprises me that they are not utilized. So that's my tech tip for Excel. Learn keyboard commands. It's a general one, guys. It's a general one out there because if I start looking at Excel in any amount of detail, my complete lack of knowledge will become apparent. And to be honest, I try to come across as slightly knowledgeable about these types of things, but keyboard commands and keyboard shortcuts are just something that I'm introduced by. I was introduced to them by people who know what they're doing. My student has to use keyboard shortcuts, and my colleague who uses keyboard commands and shortcuts on Excel. Have a look at the lists. The lists are readily available as to what keyboard shortcuts you can use for the different Microsoft programs that we like see every day. It is a game changer, absolute game changer. Just got a little message here. So what's the keyboard command for underlining word? Oh, yeah, all right. So keyboard command for underlining a particular word or phrase and word is Control U. That's it. And then boom, done, wallop. And then you press it again to stop underlining. Brilliant, genius, absolute genius. Absolute genius. And it's already there. It's readily available. People do use keyboard commands. Of course they do. But it's not something that I see very regularly. And when I see it, and the thing that makes me think, yeah, actually, you know what, this is the way forward, is that the people that use them are like the top of their game when I see them being used. And I'm like, yeah, keyboard command. Takes a bit of learning, takes a bit of knowledge as to finding the right keyboard command, finding the right and kind of a little bit of muscle memory in regards to continuing to use them, rather than like a preferred way of working sometimes, which is using the mouse to do everything. But yeah, so Excel, this from the mouth of an Excel wizard. If you want to become an Excel wizard, you first you have to reach the highest point of Mount Doom. And then you don't have to do that. Use keyboard commands. And that was it. And I thought, that's brilliant. It's brilliant in its simplicity. And sometimes that's the way of these things, that you don't think about the different ways of doing things until you see somebody doing it and you think, oh my goodness me, why haven't I done this before? Why haven't keyboard commands can be used across a range of different Microsoft products, and can be used a range of different digital products in general. Have a look. You will save yourself time and effort, guaranteed. That's it. That's all I'm going to cover with Excel now. What do you mean fudging it? What are you on about? No, I'm not fudging anything. Yeah. Brent's copy selection, Control C, paste selection, Control V, undo recent action, Control Z. Control Z is brilliant. I love Control Z. Delete, choose a fill color, Alt H cut select. Brent needs to be on the show, man. Brent needs to be on the show, because I can just hand over to him and he'll just list them off as he has done there. That's brilliant. Yeah, it's true. These things, they take a tiny bit of time to learn, but the amount of time that you save after you've got them down, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So that's my lesser known feature for Excel. Yes, yeah. So. What I also thought was, seeing as we're talking a bit about Microsoft, I want to talk about some of the accessibility features. Ding, 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 ding. That's my assistive technology bell today. Yes, at the inherent will do. The features that are built in to Windows that are there to try to increase the access of using Windows, strangely enough. So, if you don't know about these things, or if you don't have a need to use these things, you probably will never come across them. But you may have students who do need extra support in things like the presentation of text on a screen, extra support in regards to color contrast, and some others. So the next thing I want to have a look at is Windows' own ease of access suite, and that's what it's called. You can access the ease of access settings by typing ease of access into the search bar. There is a keyboard shortcut as well. I can't exactly, I think it's Windows and something else. I can't remember off the top of the head. This is why I'm not a wizard, you see. But what you open when you go to the ease of access suite is that you open options regarding some of the difficulties that people have when using a particular program. You've got choices on how you can make your display look. You've got choices on your mouse pointer. I'm sat around about 3 foot away from my computer screen, and I use the feature where you can make your mouse pointer bigger, just so I can get a handle on where I am on the screen. And that I don't have a disability. It's just something that helps me in my particular situation. You can simplify certain things. You can make the mouse pointer bigger. You can make all the text that appears on Windows larger without having to magnify. But you can also have magnification. You can have things such as color filters, where you can have a look at the color scheme with specific schemes that are linked to color blindness. You can change things to grayscale, which helps. It helps with things like visual stress. You can go the opposite way and have high contrast color schemes that mean that neighboring colors, whether they be buttons or the text that was on the page or an icon, are highly contrasted and more visible for people with certain visual impairments. It has a narrator function. Windows has a narrator function, which is a text-to-speech function that will speak to you what is on your screen. Many people don't realize that this is a feature that's built into the program. It's there. You can turn it on now and have your computer talk to you in a range of very, very nice, kind of very human accents. At the moment, I've got George, Microsoft George, United Kingdom. Big up, George. I like his dulcet tones. Within that, you can change the voice speed. You can change the pitch of the voice. You can change the volume. You can figure out where you want the narrator to appear. You can figure out if you just want it for text or if you want it for a whole screen. This is one of the things that I do in my job. My job is very varied, like weirdly varied. But one of the things that I do is that I point out to people that these tools exist already. You know, they're there. They're there. So yeah, the ease of access suite. I'm going to go on because it's just great that these things are available. You can change the keyboard settings so that you don't have to lock on particular keys if you have mobility issues. You can install Braille readers. Braille readers, if you don't know, are kind of a digital Braille tool. Traditionally, Braille is imprinted onto a paper page, but the digital tool has a kind of constantly refreshing digital kind of readout, and you can plug that in and you can get it to talk to Windows, and you can get it to read certain things. When it comes to audio, you can change your device volume. Obviously, if you have particular issues with one of your ears, you can change from stereo to mono audio, so only in one place. You can ensure that you the audio alerts. You know, sometimes you get this ping. I don't know about you. When I get a ping on my computer, I'm forever trying to find out where it's from and what it means. Because I've usually got about 120 different tabs open at one time. But what you can do is that you can ensure that any notification that comes up on your screen is not just audio; it's accompanied by a visual. What was I saying? Yeah, ease of access suite. Did you know in Windows computers, you have the capacity for eye tracking and using eye tracking software in Windows, and that is accessed through the ease of access suite. So apologies for that break there. For some reason, we stopped. I think perhaps my computer just gave up. It does that every once in a while. You know, it's a bit like me. It's just like, oh God, do I have to listen to him speak again on a Sunday evening? No, I'm just turning myself off. I've got no idea what the problem was there, guys. So all apologies. Yeah, the ease of access suite is my kind of assistive technology tip for today. What it does, it makes certain problematic things when using the Windows system slightly easier. And if you haven't taken a look at it, have a look, because many of my students with disabilities use it. But also, I also find that once people have a look at the system, people find certain things that are useful. For instance, like I said, I've got a big old mouse pointer that I can see from like 100 yards away, so I can make sure that I know where I am on the screen. I use speech to text a fair bit because I can speak a lot quicker than I can type, and I often speak at length, as you may well have known. So those are some of the features. Now, after the news, hopefully the news is going to play. Every day is a new adventure here at TT Radio, so we'll see what's going on. After the news, we'll talk about one last product from Microsoft, and then I want to talk about digital organization of academic material in particular, purely because it's something that's come up a number of times in my day-to-day job, and I want to know what people think about that particular issue. But anyway, let's have a go at the news, and we'll go from there.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out! Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading!
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The long debate as to whether a Yorkshire pudding belongs on a Christmas dinner has often been a talking point on social media. This year, however, the debate has reached new heights after an 11-year-old schoolgirl was left unimpressed by the failure to include her favourite item on the school Christmas lunch. The Daily Mirror carries details after the pupil's letter to her head teacher was shared on social media. The 11-year-old pupil from a Lancashire primary school sent the strongly worded email after she noticed that none of the pupils were served Yorkshire puddings, but staff were. The email referred to the puddings as food of the gods and as golden delicacies, and described the actions of the school as cruel and callous. Puddings for all were demanded going forward. The head teacher took the complaint seriously, but in good humour, and even agreed to take part in a conciliatory dance-off to make up for it. The dance-off was conducted in front of the whole school, with only one clear winner, the 11-year-old. So for all those still debating whether Yorkshire puddings belong on a Christmas dinner, be prepared to hit the dance floor to settle the argument. Chester Zoo and the University of Chester have joined forces for a new course focusing on conservation and sustainability education. This course offers the first opportunity anywhere in the world for education professionals to gain a recognised qualification. The course will launch in 2023 and allow those studying to gain a postgraduate certificate. The course aims to provide educators with knowledge and skills needed to help learners maximise the impact they can have in carving a better future for the planet. Full details of the new course can be found on the University of Chester website. Whilst recruitment and retention of teachers and other professionals in the UK has been a frequent topic of discussion, Nigerian news outlet The Nation looks at the topic from another angle. The article focuses on what it describes as a mass exodus of licensed medical doctors and other health professionals to more developed countries, and now the fear is changes to UK immigration rules will have a further impact on the education sector. According to a recent announcement, from February the 1st, 2023, teachers from Nigeria and other countries who qualify will be able to apply to be teachers in the UK. Whilst this is a step in the right direction for recruitment in the UK, There are fears in Nigeria and other nations that this will lead to a further brain drain that can only have a negative impact on the youth of these other nations. Finally, with many schools already broken up for the Christmas break, it's left only to wish all school staff an enjoyable holiday, while sending solidarity to those who, according to a recent Teacher Tap survey, are pushing on into this week, particularly to the 7% of staff who don't break up until Friday, the 23rd of December. Keep going. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to the 50th episode of 2 Minute Tech. This week I want to make an appeal. I'd love to know about real classroom tech situations. I want to speak to teachers of all subjects about how they use tech. How do you engage your pupils using tech? Because I'm telling you now, other people will want to know what you're doing. So what are you waiting for? Get in touch at TT Radio 2022 and let us know what you want to tell us about tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
That Yorkshire pudding thing, I reckon they got off lightly with a dance-off. They try that round my way and there'd be riots. Seriously. If the kids saw the teachers eating Yorkshire pudding and not, oh my goodness me, it'd be oh my goodness, it would be fires in the street. they don't mess around with Yorkshire puddings here in Yorkshire. Yeah, although the student was from Lancashire. I'm not going to get into that on this show. No. It's not worth it. But anyway. So we're looking at the humble Microsoft package. We've had a look over the last couple of shows. We've had a look at Word. We've had a look at PowerPoint. We've had a look at Excel. Barely. Last one I want to look at is I want to have a look at something that's going to lead into the rest of the show and something that I want to talk about because as I said before, in my day-to-day job, I'm seeing an issue pop up again and again and again. Microsoft offer a digital binder is basically the best way I can think of kind of describing it. And it is called OneNote. What it does, OneNote is akin to other products on the market such as Evernote and Notion. It offers a way for someone to organize digital materials, whether that be text, whether it be images, whether it be audio files, whether it be links to video, whether it be online links. I am fairly chaotic in my own organization of pretty much everything, work life, home life. It's somewhat of a miracle that I remember that I have to do this show every now and again. And thank you very much for the pushes from the staff here at TT Radio, because they know that I'm a little bit on the scatty side. So one of my favorite things to do in my job is to research assistive technologies and research different technologies that I think may be of use to the students and staff where I work. And I get, can you believe that, teachers? I get time out of my week to do this. Yeah, I know I am deeply, deeply privileged. So I spend a lot of time looking at websites, looking at technology, and kind of making a judgment call as to whether I think the technology is useful, whether I think it will be able to be used in our particular institution, and so on and so forth. But I was getting to the point where I was finding something and then I forgot. I just completely forgot where it was. And it's one of those things where, I test a lot of technology as well. So I sign up for different technologies. It was getting to the point where I was signing up for something that I thought, this looks really good. And then it was telling me, you've already signed up for this. And I was like, when? It's like, when did I do this? I have no memory of this place. It was getting pretty bad. And if I'm gonna be effective in my own research in my own working day, I have to have a facility to organize the things that I am researching. And of course, I work with students and staff in a higher education institution. And that means that students and staff are dealing with a massive amount of digital information for things like essays, for things like dissertations, PhDs, more information than I've ever had to face for anything that I've done professionally. And so OneNote is, as I say, one of a range of products that allow you to organize digital information. Many of my students use it for note taking, and then to augment that note taking with other files and videos and other learning materials. And it's just great. One of the things that I like about it, which is equally a blessing and a curse, is that you can organize in any way, shape you see fit. So many of my students have use OneNote, and they break it down into their lectures and their modules and so on and so forth. But I've got other students who use it purely to plan dissertations, or I've got other students who use it purely to plan their social lives. I don't know why they're showing me that. I don't care. What's a social life? Get away with that. But it's something that I want to talk about, and we'll talk about at the kind of the head of the hour, because I don't know if this is just me, and I don't know if it's, like I say, because of my wizened old age, but it seems like now that students, especially definitely in higher education, I don't know what it's like in secondary or primary, but they're having to deal with and having to be able to adapt to a huge amount of digital information, whether that be texts, whether it be online lectures, whether it be just about anything. And I'm seeing a lot of students struggle. Just with the amount of digital information that they have to take on board. I mean, traditionally, when it comes to that kind of study, it was about physical text, physical media, handwritten notes, and so on and so forth. But now, happily, in many cases, access to information is easier. Many universities across the country have repositories of digitized textbooks. Messaging when it comes to communicating with staff can be done digitally. But because of all these different streams, it's a skill to kind of be able to play around with all this information and make something of it, and make it link to each other, make it useful, as it were. So OneNote is one of the ways that this can be done. It's a digital binder. It's a digital version of those folders with the little bits in between, so you can break down your subjects. You can break things down into subjects. You can break those subjects into pages. And the thing that I really like about it is that you can put anything on the page. You can put a link to another text. You can make notes, and those notes can be either typed or they can be handwritten if a student is using a tablet. You can add your own audio notes. You can add calendars. You can add chats from different social media sites. You can add images. You can basically add anything into this digital folder or digital scrapbook. And the skill of being able to manipulate all this information and make something of it and make it coherent, it's a really specialized skill. Now, I'm not for one saying, oh, we need to teach this in schools. They do teach this in schools, personal organization. I worked in FE for the longest time, and study skills was a huge area. But the kind of the facility for study has changed. And very much so the last couple of years, where remote learning was the norm, and being able to ensure that you have somewhere where you can find information that you've gained from various sources, that you can manipulate that information and make it relevant and make it useful to you. It's a really, really important skill, but it is a skill. And it's a skill that in some cases that I'm seeing, it's leaving students behind. I think a lot of it is to do with traditionally when it comes to physical media, it has that physicality, it has a weight. And you think, if you read a book, you have it in your hands, it's there. But if you read things digitally, and to be honest, where I am now, the vast majority of learning materials are digital. There isn't that weight and there isn't that physicality. And therefore, it's very easy to skim across something, or very easy to go to different places that may not have the relevance that you need. And sometimes not being able to manipulate the information, the data that you come across, is putting people at a disadvantage. So OneNote is Microsoft's digital package, the digital binder, digital scrapbook, as it were. And it's a really, really good choice because it allows you to manipulate the information that you take on board in any way, shape or form that you see fit. But one of the issues is that making sure that you have a decent way of organizing that information is a skill in itself. And it's something that kind of needs to be addressed, I believe, especially in higher education, because the way things are, as I say, the vast majority of information is digital, and being able to manipulate that information, make it useful, make it coherent, make it so that you can do something of worth with it is a skill that not every student has. It's not. Once again, back to the digital native thing. It's not necessarily a digital skill. It's an organizational skill. And OneNote helps in that organization because it gives you a tool that allows you to organize, to file things, to label things, and have everything that you need in one place. Thank you. Hey, Dalia from Syria. Thanks for popping up on the chat there. So yeah, OneNote, one of a range of different technologies in regards to digital organization, and a really good one. I like the fact that you can organize things in any way that you can. If you come across a student, those of you that work in HE, and this is something that I've mentioned before, it's something I've started mentioning in my sessions as well. It's not just the technology that's important, it's the technique around the technology. So it's all well and good me saying, yeah, OneNote is great, it's got some really good features. It also has the accessibility features that are built into other Office products, such as Immersive Reader, which is good, really, really good. But it's not just about offering a student a product. It's about helping a student gain an insight into how to use that product for full effectiveness. One of the things that I do in my job is that I have a bank of YouTube videos of students using particular tools, because I'm not an academic. I don't really understand the pressures and the amount of information that has to be shifted. And I work with students across like all the schools. So one student could be in engineering, the next could be in social care, the next could be in English literature, the next could be in media, and so on and so forth. And I don't know nothing about none of that. You know what I mean? But what I do know is that you can find people who can act as a model. YouTube videos are really good for this kind of thing, and that's what I sometimes do. I state I'm not an academic, but here's somebody who's in your area that uses the tool in this particular way. It might be useful. Offering those models, I think, are really, really important, because not being able to manipulate data, not being able to kind of have a filing system that's effective so that you can find things that you need to find, not being able to know how to take digital notes. These things aren't inherent in the knowledge of every student or member of staff across the board. People do make assumptions as to the level of knowledge that people have. So in regards to ensuring that students can kind of deal with these massive tsunami-like waves of information, is really, really important, and has become, for me, the last couple of weeks, where I've been speaking to students and trying to help students in this particular way. It's all, everything old is new again. I'm doing very much what I used to do in further education, looking at study skills, looking at how you can use a text, looking at how you can ensure that you are getting the relevant information and summarizing. But the ways of doing it have changed, and doing those things digitally, it can sometimes be a barrier. But OneNote helps. It helps. I use it myself. Like I say, I do research on assistive technology, and I have a web clipper extension for OneNote, which means that if I come across a website and a tool that I think, oh my goodness me, that's really good, instead of just moving on and completely forgetting about it, and then coming back to it 2 months later and thinking, apparently I've looked at this before. What you can do is you can easily, from your browser, click on the extension, and it will save it to your OneNote book. And other products have that facility. Evernote has that facility. Notion has that facility. And it's about trying to capture the sheer amount of information that is out there. It's a brave new world out there, ladies and gents, when it comes to digital organization. In fact, if you have a look on YouTube and you have a look at like organization and productivity, there's a whole genre of people telling you how to organize your digital filing systems, how to ensure that you're as productive. I don't like, I've talked about this before, I don't like that whole kind of productivity thing. It's a little bit cultish, but it is a gap. It's a gap that's, for me, becoming more and more prevalent. It's becoming more and more visible that it's incredibly difficult to handle all these different streams of information, make them relevant, make them cohesive, all in one place. And OneNote's a really, really good way of doing that. I use it myself so I don't forget. I don't forget, because I have a tendency to forget quite a lot of things, such as ensuring that I press the right buttons and don't cut myself off. If Tom, Big Boss Tom, if you're out there, if you're listening, that wasn't me. All right, okay. I just like to point that out. That wasn't me. That's something. There's something going on. Somebody's out there trying to stop my show because jealousy. That's what it's about. It's about jealousy. I think I'd look to Brent. You know what I mean? I'd look to Brent, see what he's up to. Anyway, so that wraps up my look at the kind of common tools that we see all the time linked to Microsoft, linked to Windows. It was Brent, I reckon. No, I'm joking, Brent. It's not at all to do with Brent Poland. Not at all. So that wraps up my look into the kind of ubiquitous programs that we all know and either love or loathe when it comes to Windows, when it comes to Microsoft. If you haven't had a listen to my last show, I looked at Word and PowerPoint and some of the accessibility features that are now built into those programs if you use the online version of those programs. I am really impressed with Microsoft's assistive technology offer. They've integrated it into their products, which is great, but it does mean that sometimes it takes a little bit of looking to find them. But so the rest of the show, talking about kind of digital organization. Many of the students who I work with struggle with trying to make sense of the massive amounts of information that they receive in regards to their academics, and I can understand why. As I mentioned before, in this digital world now, there is a lot more information that's available, and a lot more information from many different sources, from many different streams. And that's not just the academic information. That's not just like the study, trying to find the right textbooks, trying to find something that's going to back up your argument or not back up your argument, as it were. It's about communications that you have when it comes to, I'm talking specifically in HE here, because that's my jam at the moment. A massive amount of communications via email, via a lot of the time universities use things like Teams and Zoom to communicate, lots of text information, and so on and so forth. And I was just thinking, if I was a student now, I'd find it overawing as well. I would find, well, first off, the organization of myself would be incredibly difficult, because I'm like a dog that sees a squirrel sometimes. It's like, oh, I'm going to do, oh, no, okay. But also the massive amounts of information. I don't think this, the way to, I'm not 100% sure if the way to gather this information, to assess the information, to use it in people's studies, I don't think it is explicitly taught. And as I said, I'm not one for, they should be teaching this in schools. But the kind of the way that it's happened now, the amounts of extraneous information, the reliance on digital as primary sources, means that you have to have a certain amount of skill when it comes to digital materials. Even the simplest things like organizing your file system, having a coherent filing system is one of my biggest recommendations to students. And when I say coherent, not necessarily, it's not the same for every student that I say. It is something that works for them. So some students, they come to me, they open up their desktop and I recoil in horror at how many things that they are. And they're like, I can't find, I'm struggling to find this. I was like, I could see why, I could see why. It's like somebody sneezed a bunch of folders onto your desktop. What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm a hypocrite, by the way, because I'm exactly the same. But just simple things like the organization of digital file systems, the correct or useful labeling of digital files so that you know what they are, having and being able to use a digital binder such as OneNote for your studies. It's study skills, but it's in a different form. It's like study skills 2.0, because it's not the same using physical equipment, not the same as using physical sources as it is using digital sources. And without a little bit of knowledge, and in some cases without training on how to do it, you can scupper yourself. It's a huge wave of information, and sometimes you drown. So that's what I wanted to think about and talk about for the last part of the show, as we come up to the witching hour. It is I don't care. It is the witching hour. It's 9 o'clock. It's late, man. Serious. It's late. I've got like a little tiny trickle of coffee to keep me going for the last half hour, but it's something that I want to talk about. As I said before, if you've got any comments, you can tweet us at TT Radio 2022. You can leave a message on the chat here on Podbean Live. No call-ins today. My house has become a slight plague house. We have a number of sick individuals in the house, so I can't really kind of be chatting to people. But leave a message if you can, and we'll just have a quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll talk about how we can ensure that students do have a handle on digital organisation.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out! Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading!
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more.
So thank you very much for our sponsors there. So what do we do in this age of digital tsunamis, as it were, where students, I'm seeing students in HE struggle with manipulating digital learning resources, of organizing themselves when it comes to things like filing systems, when it comes to note taking. What do we do? Well, I've already discussed one of the ways. One of the ways is to use models. One of the ways is, there are a massive amount of free resources out there. People who have gone through university or are going through their GCSEs and give models of how they organize their own academic pursuits. It's really, really important that you don't make an assumption of somebody's knowledge of how to do these things. I was kind of first generation to go to university myself, and even back then, there are certain barriers when it comes to academics. Not actual academics. Oh well, some of them were a little bit barrier-ish, but what I mean is the academic pursuits, as it were. Knowing how to reference, knowing how to cite, knowing how to organize your studies, knowing how to be motivated in those studies. And it's something that I'm seeing is very difficult for a lot of students who I work with, and students across the board. So what do we do? Offering models of how to use organizational technology has got to be it's got to be up there. As I say, it's all right me saying, use OneNote. You can put everything in it. But the way that I use OneNote will be completely different from the way the next person uses OneNote, or the way a student uses OneNote, or so on and so forth. So it's always good to find a model of working with a particular tool. Lots of companies do this. They give you kind of case studies and so on and so forth, and that's great. Good on them. It is another sales ploy, but just keep that down. But what I find is most useful is finding videos of students who are in the same sort of area using these tools and having a look at what they do. Because, as I say, the tool on its own, it's not enough. It should be the tool and the technique. Using OneNote as a student is different to me using OneNote as basically an idea dump. It's the assumption that a student knows how to deal with digital materials, knows how to deal with digital academic materials, learning materials, the systems of comms in a particular place. It is an assumption. It is an assumption. It's one that needs to be moved away from. It has to be. It has to be. Dan just sent a message on this chat. Too much assumed knowledge around academic practice is pretty stressful for the students. Yeah, it is. It is because, I'm thinking, particularly first generation students who may not have had the experience of kind of high level academics. It's catch up time. And that means that you are under a greater amount of pressure to learn things quickly that you don't know, that perhaps people have already had experience in, if they're not necessarily new to the game, as it were. And yeah, it does mean that there's extra anxiety involved. So when it comes to digital organization, when it comes to helping a student, I think offering them a range of tools that will help them is great. But offering them a model of how to use those tools is probably better, because it's that model. It's what's that phrase that rhymes? You can't be what you can't see. And I think that very much applies when it comes to digital information. Having someone and watching someone put their file system together and explain why they do it in a particular way is gold for many, many students, because they don't have another point of reference for that information. So yeah, I mean, I've got a bank of YouTube videos of students using the tools that I recommend and explaining how they go about these things, and looking at the minutiae. There's a whole range of stuff on YouTube, I'm surprised by the amount of material that there is regarding people explaining how they do things. And I love it. I absolutely love it. We have students at universities explaining how they use OneNote for academic success, or using Notion to plan a dissertation, or using distraction-free writing tools to ensure that they can get down to work. And it's so much better coming from them. When it comes to this kind of thing, peer advice, for want of a better term, because not really peers, it's all digital itself. But if you're unsure of how to organize your filing system at university, it's really great to hear from somebody who's done it or is in the process of doing it. And I think that information is invaluable. Give people a model. Give people, don't necessarily assume that somebody knows how to create a filing system for their academic year. They may be able to do absolutely fine when it comes to pen and paper, but the pen and paper version of things now is becoming less relevant because of the amount of digital material that's out there. It's not just like back in my day. You had to walk to university and take a pen and write down the ref. It's not like that at all. Information is more immediate. There's more of it. It's more immediate. And so it's about being able to sift through the information. It's about being able to organize the information. It's about being able to create notes that will be relevant and are linked to the different things that they're supposed to be creating. I mean, this stuff, is it obvious? I think the assumption that it is obvious is it's not a great one. It's not a great one. And it's easy, especially in higher education, it's easy to make an assumption of somebody's baseline knowledge regarding organizing material. So one of the things that I think is important is to give people a model of how to use these things. Don't just chuck an app at somebody. Chuck them an app and then chuck them a couple of videos about how students use these apps to help organize things. These apps that I recommend, they're usually quite easy. There's not usually much of a learning curve to use the functionality, but it's about having to conceptualize how best to organize rather than saying, oh, this will help you organize. It's about, well, I organize like this. And that is far more useful than saying, oh, here's a tool. So yeah, that's my first piece of advice when it comes to digital organization and when it comes to helping students who may not necessarily have the baseline skills when it comes to higher education. I mean, I'm always surprised when, I suffer from the same assumptions myself. I'm not above making assumptions about a person's level of skill. And I think demonstrating something is always a good idea. And funnily enough, Dan on the chat, who we are on the same wavelength, Dan, I found that I've had to demo an app in class to make it part of the session consistently before students use them independently. I don't know how much space unis have for that kind of sort of teaching approach. That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing, you know. I think there's always space for study skills at university, or at least there should be. It's like I say, the assumption that everybody knows how to do this thing straight off the bat. It has become obvious for me over the last few weeks that assumption is a wrong one. And so, you know, online courses, courses linked to study skills at a central library at an institution. I think these things can be made available, and it's just about signposting and ensuring that people know that they exist. Because if they don't know they exist, it's not going to get used, and that's the case in anything really. But when it comes to digital organization, just a quick video about how to organize your filing system. And I'm not even talking about using a particular app. I'm talking about those yellow bad boys that you see on your desktop. You know, how do you make sure that there's a logical order? How do you make sure that you can identify something that you need easily? As I say, I'm a little bit hypocritical because it's almost as if I make my life a little bit more difficult. I change my system far more than is healthy. And so I've got parts of my filing system that's in one way, parts of my filing system that's in another way, and so on and so forth. but allowing someone to see that kind of like the building blocks of academia, you know, allowing a student to see somebody's filing system, allowing a student to say, okay, that kind of thing's going to work for me. That might not work for me, but that kind of thing's going to work for me. And having having digital models is really important. Demonstration, as Dan says, demonstrating a particular tool. Here's the other thing. It's not as if it's just come off the top of my head. Of course, I've planned this. It's definitely here in my notes. Really, it is. It's not enough to demonstrate a tool, but you have to demonstrate a tool in the context of your own institution. That's what I think. Because what you do then is that you take away from the abstract, and then you say, well, okay, so we know that this library here has got this particular book. So what we're going to do, give it meaning by ensuring a locality, ensuring that any training that does happen, you know, is immediately obvious that it works in your institution. Because I think sometimes if you don't do that, these tools and their use become very, very abstract. That's why I like the YouTube video method of saying, okay, here's a student. They're kind of doing your area. Have a look and see what's working for them. The other issue, of course, is that not everybody is going to be the same, and people are going to be using different kind of different methods and so on and so forth. So sometimes it is about sampling, and that can also be problematic because it takes up time. It takes up time for a student to have a look at other people and say, okay, you do it this way. Maybe that's a good idea. Where do we, as Dan earlier on said, where do we find the time? Where do we find the space to do that in an HE institution? Pre the start of your academic career, hopefully. I mean, if universities are interested in kind of equity in regards to students that may not have had generations of experience when it comes to things like digital study or just study skills in general, they really should be thinking about a facility that helps students before they get started, you know, so they're not on the back foot, you know, you can get a running jump. I don't know why I use so many kind of athletic analogies, because I'm like the least athletic person that I know, you know. But anyway, hopefully I'm getting the point across. Well, Dan said, as everyone is watching lectures online instead of going to them, perhaps a rebalance. Now, this is the thing, you know. I mean, excuse me, I'm just going to take a massive swig of coffee to try and get through the next part. Physical attendance of lectures. And it links back to Dan's run from the chat after dropping that bomb. Well, as everyone is watching lectures online instead of going to them, perhaps a rebalance. Oh, he's Molotov the chat there and run off as Dan. Good on him. Got to have a bit of controversy on an evening. Yeah, when it comes, I got very, very specific. Very, very specific thoughts when it comes to online lectures, because in my area, working with students with disabilities, in some cases, online lectures are pretty much essential. However, perhaps there does need to be a rebalance in regards to the digital world and the real world. For me, I am nothing if not an advocate for digital lectures. I know people probably don't want to hear that, but I can't think of a decent reason not to have them now that we have the technology that makes it so that we can have them. But that, I reckon that might be another, is that a whole show's worth of content there? I reckon it is. So at some point in the future, ladies and gents, here's a trailer. We'll be talking about recorded lectures. Good thing, bad thing, and so on and so forth. Thanks for that, Dan. Basically, you're writing my content for me. You're absolute star. When it comes to the differences between kind of physical study and the study of digital materials, I think one of the biggest differences is the amount. And because that you are so much is readily available, it can be extremely overawing. And Dan's hoping there's a dissertation in the topic. Do not let me tread on your academic toes, dude. You get that done. Cite me though, like Tom's discussion was amazing, and that's why I've created this fantastic text, something like that. So the amount of material is one of the things that makes digital organization difficult, digital organization problematic. The lack of knowledge about how to use digital tools to help with the organization of that material is also problematic. The assumption around the level of knowledge about those tools is definitely problematic. And but it's just something that I think to myself, we need to prepare students a bit more for this. Not to hold their hand throughout their academic studies, of course not, but to prepare them when it comes to the donkey work of sifting through a whole bunch of digital information, ensuring that if you are looking at different sources, different digital sources, that you're able to keep motivated and you keep focused. These things, they're going to become more and more relevant. There's a to-in and fro-in HE at the moment regarding, remote learning and in-person learning and so on and so forth. But it's not just at the point of learning, it's about the materials around the learning. I don't know of a university that doesn't have a central learning environment where a student can go to and get the information that they need fairly immediately. And it's that immediacy sometimes that is a disadvantage, strangely enough, because you have everything. Everything is there. And whereas in previous decades, there had to be a certain amount of searching, a certain amount of, but everything just arrives on your doorstep like it's a party. It's like, ding dong, hello, we're all the learning materials that you'll need for this year. How are you doing? Where's the beer? I'm not surprised that that's difficult to manage. I'm not surprised that having that wave means that a lot of my students are finding it difficult to organize themselves, organize their academic pursuits. But if you can give people a model about how to use the tools, I think that's a bonus. If you can not make an assumption about somebody's baseline knowledge in regards to academic study and the handling of digital materials. I think that's a bonus too. But also looking at the techniques around the tools that you might introduce is paramount, I believe. See, I've just look at that. How good that's decades of teaching right there. I just summarized everything off the top of my head. Boom, plenary, boom, easy. I don't know why people get stressed about teaching. So it's easy, isn't it? I am joking, ladies and gentlemen. That's a joke. Okay, please don't cancel me. I need to make sure that I can keep my attic heated. All right. But yeah, so to sum up, what we're looking at is I've looked at the ubiquitous nature of some of the Microsoft products that are out there and some of the lesser known features of said products. And then I made a segue into digital organization, which is something that many students who I'm working with are struggling with. It's not about lack of will, don't get me wrong. It's not about people not being bothered. It's about a lack of knowledge. It's about not having dealt before with massive amounts of information and not having dealt before with having to try to prioritize what's important, having to try to identify what's important, and not having to have had faced the wave before, because it's a massive digital wave of information, and I'm not surprised that people are rapidly paddling just to stay afloat. But anyway, we're getting to close to the end of today's conversation. I say it's a conversation. I just talk. That's like it's a lecture, isn't it? So we've looked at Microsoft products, we've looked at digital organization, and thank you, Dan Phillips, you wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. I think what Dan's done, he has suggested a really good topic for my next session. Some point after the Christmas break, like I said, I'm not that organized enough to give you a date, sorry. We'll talk about the recording of lectures and what that means, because I'm pretty militant about it, and I know that there are academics out there who are also pretty militant but stand on the other side. So that should be good. Maybe I'll get a guest on. That would be good. Sometimes I don't really. I have trust issues in regards to people in general, and sometimes I just like to talk so I don't have to organize like things like pressing a button to let somebody else talk. But it could be quite a nice little show if we do something along the lines of for and against the recording of lectures. I know which side I'm on. There's no fence sitting here. I'm for. So if you are against the recording of lectures, maybe get in touch. This is Dan. Just like a last message from Dan. I was grateful to watch one at 1.5 the other day. Maybe flip learning could actually work for a change. This is the thing. I speed this stuff up no end. Also, I work with lots of students who use screen readers, and the speed that they set the screen readers on is just incredible. I cannot make out what's being said, but many of the students that I work with, it's just the day to day. But yeah, you could do that with you could pretty much do that with this particular podcast. Stick it up at 1.5, get through it. You'd miss the wonderful nuance and the huge intellect of the host here. But who cares? So yeah, we'll talk a little bit next time. We'll talk a little bit about the recording of lectures in higher education and talk about the benefits and the disadvantages that it may offer. That's really good. That's really, really good. So yeah, that's going to be it for me. Apologies for the break in between the show. I'm going to blame Gremlins this time. I think yeah, Gremlins. it's Christmas time, so no, that was a good movie. They should have put Gremlins on. Why on earth did they put Broken Arrow on? Like we were like 13 years old. I'm just getting flashbacks to the ultra-violence of my youth. All right, so thank you very much if you've listened live. If you are listening on the download, also thank you very much for taking the time. I hope everybody has a restful Christmas with little drama, and I hope everybody gets a Yorkshire pudding on their plate. Otherwise, you're going to have like primary kids having a go at you, and nobody wants that. No, nobody wants that. So thank you very much. Thanks for listening, and hopefully I'll be around soon.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.